She never had the abortion the billionaire CEO forced her to have. 7 years later, at a mutual friend's birthday, he sees her with a son who looks exactly like him. "That's my son, isn't he?" Xavier's voice cut through the ambient noise of the lavish birthday celebration, his eyes never leaving Sophia's face. The color drained from her cheeks as she glanced toward the 7-year-old boy, laughing across the room. "Xavier, not here." Sophia's voice trembled despite her attempt to appear calm. "This isn't the place. Don't tell me where to have this conversation." His words came out as a barely controlled whisper, rage and shock battling across his features. 7 years, Sophia. 7 years you kept my child from me. You gave me cash for an abortion and told me never to contact you again, she hissed back, eyes flashing with 7 years of suppressed anger. What was I supposed to do? Not lie about my son's existence. Xavier's hand tightened around his crystal tumbler until his knuckles turned white. You told me you'd take care of it. Those were your exact words. Ah. I did take care of it. I took care of him. Alone. Sophia straightened her spine, years of single motherhood having forged her into steel. You made your choice 7 years ago, Xavier. I made mine. The boy turned then, his smile lighting up his face, Xavier's smile, Xavier's eyes staring back at him from across the room. And in that moment, Xavier Blackwood, the man who controlled billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, felt his perfectly constructed world crumble beneath his feet. If you've ever believed that our choices define our future, or that some mistakes can never be undone, stay with me as I tell you the story of Xavier, Sophia, and the son who connected them forever. Like this video, and subscribe to hear more stories about life-changing moments and the power of redemption. 7 years earlier, Sophia Laurent stood in the gleaming lobby of Blackwood Technologies, clutching her portfolio with white-knuckled fingers. At 26, she was younger than most engineers pitching directly to Xavier Blackwood, but her innovative green energy solutions had caught the attention of several top executives. The elevator doors slid open silently, revealing a sleek hallway of glass and steel. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she followed the receptionist to the conference room. Miss Laurent. Xavier Blackwood rose from his chair as she entered, his tall frame impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than her rent. I've been looking forward to meeting the woman behind the solar integration system everyone's talking about. Sophia extended her hand, determined not to be intimidated. Mr. Blackwood, thank you for taking the time to review my proposal. His grip was firm, confident, but it was his eyes that caught her off guard. Sharp, intelligent, and unexpectedly warm. Please, call me Xavier. That meeting changed the trajectory of both their lives. What began as a professional collaboration quickly evolved into something more. Xavier was fascinated by Sophia's brilliant mind and uncompromising passion for sustainable technology. Sophia found herself drawn to the surprising depth beneath his powerful exterior. Their romance blazed hot and fast. Weekends in Paris, midnight conversations about changing the world through innovation, passionate nights in his penthouse overlooking Central Park. Xavier Blackwood, known for his calculated approach to both business and relationships, seemed to throw caution to the wind when it came to Sophia. You're unlike anyone I've ever met, he told her one night as they stood on his balcony, the city lights glittering below them like fallen stars. You see the world as it could be, not just as it is. Sophia leaned into him, allowing herself to believe that what they shared might be more than temporary. Is that a good thing? It's extraordinary. He kissed her then, and Sophia felt herself falling deeper into a relationship that seemed too perfect to be real. But perfection, as Sophia would soon learn, was simply an illusion carefully maintained by Xavier Blackwood. 3 months into their relationship, reality came crashing down around her. She sat on the edge of her bathtub, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. Sophia had always wanted children someday, but not like this, not when her career was just taking off, not when her relationship with Xavier still felt new and undefined. Yet, as the initial shock faded, a tentative hope took root. Perhaps this unexpected development would deepen their connection. Xavier had mentioned wanting a family eventually. Maybe, eventually, could be now. Later that evening, she sat across from him at an exclusive restaurant, her untouched glass of wine, a silent testament to the news she carried. You're quiet tonight, Xavier observed, his attention briefly diverted from his phone. Problem with the Austin project? Sophia took a deep breath. No, The project is fine. It's something else. Something important. Something in her tone made him set his phone down, giving her his full attention. What is it? I'm pregnant. The words hung between them, altering the very air they breathed. Xavier's expression changed so quickly. Sophia almost missed the flash of panic before his features settled into a careful neutrality. I see. I know this isn't planned, she continued, heart racing. But I thought we could. Sophia. His voice was gentle but firm, the same tone he used when shutting down impractical proposals in board meetings. This is impossible timing. The company is about to go public. I'm negotiating the biggest acquisition of my career. A child doesn't fit into either of our lives right now. The restaurant continued to bustle around them, oblivious to the way Sophia's world was splintering. I understand the timing isn't ideal, but there's no but here. Xavier reached across the table, taking her hand in a gesture that felt more controlling than comforting. We've known each other for 3 months. Neither of us is ready for this kind of commitment. Maybe I am, Sophia said quietly, pulling her hand away. Xavier's expression hardened. You're at a crucial point in your career. The solar integration system is about to launch. A pregnancy would derail everything you've worked for. That should be my decision to make. And it is. I'm simply pointing out the practical reality. His voice remained calm, reasonable, as if they were discussing a minor scheduling conflict. There are solutions for situations like this. Discreet ones. Sophia felt a chill settle over her. Solutions? Yes. He signaled for the check, the matter seemingly settled in his mind. I'll have my assistant arrange everything. The best doctors, complete privacy. You're talking about an abortion as if it's a dental appointment. Xavier's jaw tightened. I'm talking about making a rational decision in both our best interests. A child now would be a complication neither of us needs. Sophia stared at him, suddenly seeing clearly the man behind the charismatic facade. A complication? Is that how you see a life? Our child? Don't be emotional about this, Sophia. We're both intelligent people. Surely you can see this is the only sensible option. They barely spoke during the car ride back to her apartment. Xavier's driver navigated the busy New York streets, while Sophia gazed out the window, her hand protectively covering her still flat stomach. I'll come up, Xavier said as they pulled up to her building. But it wasn't an offer. Inside her apartment, he withdrew an envelope from his jacket pocket and placed it on her kitchen counter. This should cover everything. The address of the clinic is inside. They're expecting you tomorrow morning. Sophia stared at the envelope, nausea rising that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. You already made the appointment. I handled it. You don't need to worry about anything. Except killing our baby. Xavier's expression tightened. Don't be dramatic. It's a collection of cells, not a baby. This is the right decision, Sophia. For who? Tears burned in her eyes. For you? For your company? For your precious public image? For both of us. He checked his watch, already mentally moving on to his next appointment. My driver will pick you up at 8. Call me when it's done, and we can put this unfortunate situation behind us. And if I don't? The question hung between them. Xavier's eyes met hers, cold and unfamiliar. Then we have nothing more to discuss. I've been clear about what I want, Sophia. The choice is yours, but understand that a child is not part of my plans. Not now, possibly not ever. He left her standing in her kitchen, the envelope of cash like a burning brand on her counter. Through her tears, Sophia finally saw Xavier Blackwood clearly, not as the passionate, brilliant man she'd fallen for, but as someone who viewed people as assets or liabilities in the ledger of his life. That night, Sophia made 2 decisions that would alter the course of her future. She would keep her baby, and she would never again allow anyone to make her feel small for choosing love over practicality. The next morning, she called Xavier's assistant. Please tell Mr. Blackwood that I took care of it. She said, the lie bitter on her tongue. And that he was right, this is for the best. By the end of the week, Sophia had resigned from the joint project with Blackwood Technologies, citing personal reasons. By the end of the month, she had sold her apartment and accepted a position with a smaller firm in Seattle. She tried calling Xavier once, when guilt over her deception outweighed her anger, but discovered her number had been blocked. She sent 2 letters that were returned unopened. The message was clear. Xavier Blackwood had removed her from his life, as efficiently as he managed everything else. Seattle embraced Sophia with its perpetual mist and promise of new beginnings. She rented a small house near a park, converted the second bedroom into a nursery, and threw herself into building a life for her unborn child. When Nathaniel Laurent arrived on a stormy November night, 7 pounds of perfection with his father's dark eyes and determined chin, Sophia vowed he would never feel unwanted. "It's just you and me, little one," she whispered to his sleeping face. "And I promise that's more than enough." The early years were difficult. Sophia juggled motherhood with her demanding career, often working late into the night after Nathan had fallen asleep. Her mother came from Chicago to help during the first year, but when a stroke claimed her life just after Nathan's second birthday, Sophia found herself truly alone. Yet, in the midst of the struggle, she discovered an unexpected strength. Her innovative designs caught the attention of investors, and by the time Nathan was 4, Sophia had founded Laurent Sustainable Solutions, a boutique firm specializing in green technology for urban environments. Her patented solar integration system, the one she'd once pitched to Xavier, became the cornerstone of her growing company. Nathan grew into a precocious, curious child with an innate understanding of how things worked. Sophia would often find him dismantling his toys to examine their mechanisms, his small face scrunched in concentration that reminded her painfully of his father. "Mom, why don't I have a dad like Leo does?" Nathan asked one evening when he was 6, referring to his best friend from school. Sophia sat beside him on his bed, choosing her words carefully. "Families come in all different shapes, sweetheart. Some have moms and dads, some have 2 moms or 2 dads, and some, like ours, have just one parent who loves them very much. But I had a dad once, right? I didn't just appear." She smiled despite the ache in her chest. "Yes, you had a father. He wasn't ready to be a dad when you were born." "Wasn't ready?" Nathan frowned, processing this information with his usual thoroughness. "Like when I'm not ready for a test at school?" "Something like that." Sophia smoothed his dark hair. "So like Xavier's. Sometimes adults aren't ready for big responsibilities, even when they should be." "Will I ever meet him?" The question she'd been dreading for years. "I don't know, Nathan. Maybe someday, if circumstances change." "Does he know about me?" Sophia felt the weight of her lie pressed down on her shoulders. "He knows I was going to have a baby, but we haven't spoken since before you were born." Nathan nodded, accepting this simplified version of the truth. "That's okay. We're good together, just us. And the best team ever," Sophia agreed, pulling him close and breathing in his clean, little boy scent. That night, she took out the box she kept hidden in her closet, newspaper clippings, tracking Xavier's rising profile. The occasional photograph showing him at industry events, always impeccably dressed and usually accompanied by some stunning model or socialite. His company had gone public as planned, making him a billionaire several times over. His acquisition of rival tech firms had cemented Blackwood Technologies as a global powerhouse. By all accounts, Xavier Blackwood had achieved everything he'd sacrificed their relationship to pursue. Sophia wondered, not for the first time, if she should have tried harder to tell him the truth. But each article, each photograph of him with another beautiful woman, reinforced her belief that she'd made the right choice. Xavier had been clear about what he wanted, and it wasn't a family. She closed the box, returning it to its hiding place. The past was past. She had a thriving business and a wonderful son. Their life was complete without Xavier Blackwood. Then came the invitation that would shatter the careful boundaries between past and present. "Mom, there's a fancy envelope for you." Nathan called from the front hall, where he'd collected the mail as part of his chore routine. Sophia set down her coffee, recognizing the expensive stationery even before she saw the elegant script. Vivian Reynolds, her former roommate from New York, one of the few connections to her previous life she'd maintained through occasional emails and holiday cards. The envelope contained an invitation to Vivian's 40th birthday celebration, an extravagant weekend affair at her estate in the Hamptons. Normally, Sophia would have sent her regrets. Seattle to New York was a long trip for a birthday party, even for an old friend. But the handwritten note accompanying the formal invitation gave her pause. "I know it's a lot to ask, but I'd love to see you and finally meet Nathan. It's been too long, Soph. Please say you'll come. And before you ask, yes, he will probably make an appearance. Viv's husband is on Xavier's board now, but it's a huge event with over 200 guests. You wouldn't even have to see him." Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she set the invitation down. 7 years. 7 years of carefully constructed distance, of building a life that had nothing to do with Xavier Blackwood. The thought of being in the same room with him again made her stomach clench with a complicated mixture of emotions she didn't care to examine. "Is it someone's birthday?" Nathan asked, peering at the elaborate invitation. "An old friend from New York." Sophia forced a smile. "She's having a big party." "In New York? Can we go? I've never been to New York." Nathan's eyes lit up with excitement. "We learned about the Empire State Building in school, and the Statue of Liberty, and Times Square." Sophia looked at her son's eager face, his dark eyes so like his father's. Wasn't this part of why she'd left New York? To ensure they'd never accidentally cross paths with Xavier? To protect Nathan from the man who'd viewed him as an inconvenience before he was even born? It would mean missing a few days of school, she hedged. "Please, Mom, I could do extra homework. And you always say educational trips are important." Sophia hesitated. Perhaps Vivian was right. At a large event, she could easily avoid Xavier. And after 7 years, would he even recognize her? She'd changed her hairstyle, matured from the young engineer he'd known into a successful business owner. "Let me think about it," she said finally. That night, after Nathan was asleep, Sophia researched flights to New York and accommodation options. The practical arrangements were simple enough. The emotional preparation was another matter entirely. Was she ready to return to the city where she'd once envisioned a future with Xavier? Was she prepared for the possibility, however remote, of seeing him again? And most importantly, was it fair to bring Nathan into such a complicated situation, even unknowingly? Yet, as she watched her son over the following days, his excitement when discussing New York landmarks, his careful addition of the trip to his calendar, his serious consultation of the weather forecast for appropriate packing, Sophia found her resistance weakening. Nathan deserved to see New York, to expand his horizons beyond Seattle. She couldn't let her past with Xavier limit her son's experiences. "We're going," she announced over dinner a week later. "I've booked our flights for next Thursday." Nathan's whoop of excitement echoed through their kitchen. "We're going to New York. Wait until I tell Leo. He's never been either." Sophia smiled, pushing away her lingering doubts. "It's just for the weekend, and we'll be pretty busy with the birthday celebration. But we'll make time to see some sights. Can we go to the Natural History Museum? They have real dinosaur skeletons." "Absolutely." "And the Empire State Building? And ride the subway?" "We'll do as much as we can fit in." Sophia laughed at his enthusiasm. "Now finish your dinner. Future travelers need their strength." That night, she emailed Vivian confirming their attendance, adding a postscript she hoped didn't betray her anxiety. "Please don't mention to anyone that I'm bringing Nathan. I prefer to avoid unnecessary complications." Vivian's response came within the hour. "My lips are sealed. Can't wait to see you both. Zoe." As their departure date approached, Sophia found herself increasingly on edge. She checked and rechecked their reservations, packed and repacked their suitcases, and spent hours researching child-friendly activities in Manhattan, as if planning the perfect itinerary could somehow ward off the anxiety coiling in her stomach. The night before their flight, she found herself once again opening the box of clippings about Xavier. The most recent article, from a business magazine published just 2 months earlier, featured him on the cover under the headline, "The Evolution of a Tech Titan." The photograph showed him looking slightly older than she remembered, silver now threading his dark hair at the temples, his expression more serious than in her memories. The article praised his recent pivot towards sustainable technology and ethical business practices, a far cry from the cutthroat reputation he'd cultivated in earlier years. Sophia scanned the personal details included in the profile. No mention of a wife, though there was a vague reference to him being intensely private about his personal life, following a series of high-profile relationships. The Xavier she'd known had never been particularly concerned with ethics, beyond what regulations required. People had been resources to be utilized, problems to be solved. Had he changed? Or was this simply a carefully crafted public image? It didn't matter, she told herself firmly, closing the box and returning it to its hiding place. Their lives had diverged 7 years ago. What kind of man Xavier Blackwood had become was irrelevant to her and Nathan, if only she could make herself believe it. The flight to New York passed uneventfully, Nathan's excitement never wavering as he pressed his face against the window during their descent, marveling at the sprawling cityscape below. "It's so big," he exclaimed. "Way bigger than Seattle." Sophia smiled, seeing the city through his eyes rather than through the lens of her memories. "It certainly is. They checked into their hotel in Midtown, a comfortable but not extravagant establishment Sophia had chosen for its proximity to the major attractions Nathan wanted to visit. Vivian had offered them a room at her Manhattan apartment, but Sophia preferred the neutrality of a hotel, a space untainted by connections to her past life. "Can we explore now?" Nathan asked, bouncing on the hotel bed after they'd unpacked. "Just a short walk," Sophia agreed, unable to resist his enthusiasm. "We have to be at Aunt Vivian's dinner by 7. They wandered through the bustling streets, Nathan's hand firmly in hers, as he gazed up at the towering buildings with undisguised awe. Times Square overwhelmed him with its lights and noise, his eyes wide as he tried to absorb everything at once. "It's like the whole world is here," he said, watching the diverse crowd flowing around them. "That's what makes New York special," Sophia agreed. "It's a little bit of everywhere, all in one place." As the afternoon light began to fade, they returned to their hotel to prepare for Vivian's dinner, a smaller affair preceding the main birthday celebration scheduled for the following evening. Sophia dressed with extra care, selecting a deep blue dress that projected confidence while remaining understated. Nathan, unusually cooperative about wearing the blazer and dress pants she'd packed for him, studied his reflection critically. "Do I look fancy enough for a New York party?" he asked, attempting to smooth down a stubborn cowlick. Sophia smiled, her heart swelling with love for this remarkable little person. "You look very handsome. The most handsome date I've ever had." And Vivian's Upper East Side apartment occupied the entire top floor of a pre-war building with a uniformed doorman and marble lobby. As the elevator carried them upward, Sophia felt her anxiety returning. While Xavier wouldn't be at this intimate dinner, many of the guests would be connected to her former life, people who might ask uncomfortable questions about Nathan. "Sophia," Vivian exclaimed as she opened the door, pulling her into a fierce hug. "I can't believe it's been 7 years." "Happy birthday," Sophia said, returning the embrace. "You look amazing." Vivian, stylish as ever in a silver cocktail dress that complemented her blonde hair, turned her attention to Nathan. "And this must be the famous Nathan. I've heard so much about you." Nathan extended his hand with the formal politeness Sophia had taught him. "Happy birthday, Miss Reynolds. Thank you for inviting us to your party." "Oh, he's adorable," Vivian declared, exchanging a meaningful glance with Sophia. "And so grown up. Please, call me Aunt Vivian. All my favorite people do." 1. The dinner party was smaller than Sophia had anticipated. Just 20 guests gathered around Vivian's elegantly appointed dining table. To her relief, most were people she didn't know. New friends Vivian had made in the years since Sophia left New York. The few familiar faces belonged to people who had been peripheral to her relationship with Xavier, unlikely to make connections that could lead to uncomfortable revelations. Nathan charmed everyone, his natural intelligence and good manners drawing compliments from all quarters. He sat beside a prominent architect who, upon learning of his interest in building design, spent nearly half an hour discussing famous structures around the world. "Your son is remarkable," the architect told Sophia as the evening wound down. "Such a keen mind for spatial concepts. You should nurture that talent." "Thank you," Sophia said, watching Nathan, carefully examining the blueprint sketches the man had drawn on a napkin. "He constantly surprises me." Later, as most guests were departing, Vivian pulled Sophia aside. "He's the spitting image of his father, you know? I nearly fell over when you walked in." Sophia tensed. "Is it that obvious? To someone who knew you both back then?" "Absolutely. Those eyes, that expression when he's concentrating, pure Xavier." Vivian lowered her voice. "Are you sure about tomorrow?" "There will be at least 200 people, but still." "We'll be fine," Sophia said, with more confidence than she felt. "It's a big event. The chances of us even crossing paths are slim." Vivian didn't look convinced. "Well, just so you know, Xavier's changed a lot since you knew him. After you left, he went through this phase of dating every model in Manhattan, but the past few years he's been different. More serious. Focused on using his company for positive impact." "People don't change that fundamentally," Sophia said, the bitterness in her voice surprising her. "Maybe not. But life has a way of teaching hard lessons." Vivian squeezed her arm. "Just be prepared, okay? For any possibility." As their taxi carried them back to the hotel, Nathan's head nodding sleepily against her shoulder, Sophia wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Perhaps they should skip the main event tomorrow, claim a headache or sudden work emergency, Spend the day at museums instead. But that would be running away. Again. And Sophia Loren had promised herself long ago that she was done running from Xavier Blackwood. The birthday celebration was even more lavish than Sophia had anticipated. Vivian's Hamptons estate had been transformed into a fairy tale landscape, with thousands of twinkling lights illuminating the gardens, and a massive tent erected on the lawn to house the dinner and dancing. Chauffeur-driven cars lined the long driveway, disgorging guests in formal attire who exclaimed over the extravagance as they entered. "Wow!" Nathan breathed as they stepped from their hired car, his eyes wide at the spectacle. "Aunt Vivian must be really important." "Her husband is," Sophia murmured, adjusting the strap of her emerald gown, the most formal dress she owned, purchased for a sustainability award ceremony the previous year. "He's a very successful investment banker." "Like Mr. Blackwood is a tech guy?" Nathan asked innocently. Sophia nearly stumbled on the gravel path. "What do you know about Mr. Blackwood?" "I heard people talking about him last night. They said he might come today because he's friends with Aunt Vivian's husband." Nathan shrugged. "And I've seen his company's logo on some of the tech at school." Of course. Blackwood Technologies had a near monopoly on educational technology these days. Sophia forced a smile. "Yes, something like that. Remember what we talked about. Stay close to me during the party, okay? There will be a lot of people." "I know, Mom. I'm not a baby." Nathan rolled his eyes, looking so much like his father that Sophia's heart contracted painfully. Inside the tent, the celebration was in full swing. A string quartet played on a raised platform, while waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Sophia accepted a glass, scanning the crowd with practiced casualness, her pulse quickening at each dark-haired man who appeared in her line of sight. "Sophia, you made it." Vivian appeared beside them, resplendent in a gold gown that caught the light as she moved. "And Nathan, don't you look handsome in your suit?" "Thank you, Aunt Vivian," Nathan replied, beaming at the compliment. "Your party is amazing. I've never seen so many fancy people in one place." Vivian laughed. "Well, most of them aren't nearly as interesting as they look. But there are some children your age here too. My nephew Leo is by the dessert table with a few friends. Would you like to meet them?" Nathan looked at Sophia questioningly. She nodded her permission. "Stay where I can see you, please." As Vivian led Nathan toward the group of children, Sophia took a long sip of champagne, willing her nerves to settle. She could do this. One evening in a crowd of strangers, and tomorrow they'd be back to their normal life in Seattle. For the next hour, Sophia maintained a careful orbit around Nathan, keeping him in sight while exchanging pleasant but forgettable conversation with various guests. She was just beginning to think they might make it through the evening without incident, when a sudden shift in the atmosphere caught her attention. The crowd near the entrance parted subtly, conversations pausing as heads turned. Even without looking, Sophia knew what it meant. Xavier Blackwood had arrived. She turned slowly, her champagne glass clutched like a talisman, and there he was, standing just inside the entrance, scanning the crowd with the same commanding presence she remembered. 7 years had added gravitas to his features, subtle lines around his eyes and mouth that somehow enhanced rather than diminished his appeal. His tailored tuxedo emphasized his athletic build, the confident set of his shoulders. Sophia stepped behind a column, heart hammering against her ribs. He hadn't seen her. If she could just gather Nathan and make their excuses to Vivian, they could leave before. "Mom, they have a magician doing card tricks." Nathan appeared at her side, excitement making his words tumble out in a rush. "Can I go watch with the other kids? Please?" "Nathan, I think we should." "Please?" "Leo says the magician makes cards disappear and then pulls them out of people's ears." Sophia glanced toward the children's area. It was on the opposite side of the tent from where Xavier stood greeting their hosts. "All right, but stay with the group. I'll be right over here." As Nathan darted off, Sophia retreated further into the shadows of her column, watching Xavier's progress through the crowd. He moved with the ease of someone accustomed to being the center of attention, stopping to shake hands or exchange brief words with various guests, gradually making his way deeper into the tent. She should leave now, Sophia thought. Find Nathan, make their apologies, and escape before the inevitable collision. But her feet remained rooted to the spot, her eyes unable to look away from the man who had once been the center of her world. Then it happened, the moment she both dreaded and secretly anticipated. Xavier turned slightly, his gaze sweeping across the room, and froze when it landed on her. Recognition dawned instantly, his expression shifting from polite interest to shock to something more complex she couldn't interpret from a distance. For an endless moment, they stared at each other across the crowded tent, 7 years of absence suspended between them. Then Xavier began moving toward her, with purposeful strides, his focus unwavering as he navigated around clusters of chatting guests. Sophia straightened her spine, lifting her chin slightly. She would not shrink from this confrontation. She had done nothing wrong. Sophia. Her name on his lips after so long sent an unwelcome shiver down her spine. This is unexpected. Hello, Xavier. She was proud of how steady her voice sounded. Vivian didn't mention I'd be here? She failed to include that detail. His eyes flicked toward the children's area, where Nathan stood laughing at the magician's antics. That's your son? The careful neutrality in his voice couldn't quite mask the calculation happening behind his eyes. The mental math of timing, genetics, possibilities. Yes, that's Nathan. How old is he? The directness of the question left no room for evasion. He turned 7 in November. Xavier's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching beneath the smooth skin. November the 15th. The significance wasn't lost on him. Exactly 9 months after their last night together. The night before she told him she was pregnant. The night before he'd handed her cash for an abortion. You told me, he started, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I told you what you wanted to hear, Sophia interrupted. You made it perfectly clear you didn't want a child, Xavier. You didn't want complications. Xavier. So you lied about having an abortion and disappeared? I tried to tell you the truth. You blocked my number, returned my letters unopened. What was I supposed to do? Not lie about my child's existence for starters, he hissed, his composure slipping. Sophia felt 7 years of buried anger, rising to the surface. You gave me cash like I was a problem to be handled by your accountant. You said a baby would ruin everything you'd worked for. What exactly about that suggested you'd welcome the truth? Before he could respond, Nathan bounded back to her side, his small face bright with excitement. Mom, the magician pulled a rabbit out of his hat. A real one. He stopped, noticing Xavier. Hello, sir. Xavier stared at the boy, his expression a complex mixture of shock, anger, and something that might have been wonder. Hello. His voice sounded strangled. Nathan, this is Mr. Blackwood, Sophia said, her heart racing. He's an old friend from when I lived in New York. She's Blackwood? Like Blackwood Technologies? Nathan's eyes widened with recognition. We use your tablets at school for our science projects. They're awesome. Xavier seemed momentarily thrown by the boy's enthusiasm. Thank you. I'm glad you find them useful. They're the best. My friend Leo dropped his in the fish tank during our ecosystem project, and it still worked. Despite the tension vibrating between the adults, Xavier's lips twitched slightly. They're designed to be durable. Kids can be unpredictable. That's what Mom always says when I break something by accident. Nathan grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. She says I'm engineered for discovery, not caution. Might not. Xavier's eyes flicked to Sophia, something unreadable passing across his features. Your mother sounds very wise. She is. She builds super cool green buildings. She won an award last year and everything. Did she? Xavier's gaze remained on Sophia, assessing. That doesn't surprise me at all. Sophia placed a protective hand on Nathan's shoulder. Sweetheart, why don't you go back to the magic show? I need to talk with Mr. Blackwood for a few minutes. Nathan looked between them, his perceptive eyes narrowing slightly. Okay, but can I get some cake after? They have chocolate with raspberry filling. Faya. Absolutely. Sophia forced a smile. Just one piece, though. As Nathan darted back to the children's area, Xavier's composed facade cracked further. That's my son, isn't he? His voice was barely audible over the music and conversation surrounding them. Sophia met his gaze steadily. Yes. And you never thought I deserved to know? I tried to tell you. Xavier. Twice. You blocked my calls and returned my letters. After you told me you'd had an abortion. Lower your voice, Sophia hissed, glancing around to ensure they weren't attracting attention. This isn't the place for this conversation. Xavier ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a rare gesture of agitation from a man known for his iron control. Then where? When? Because we are having this conversation, Sophia. 7 years of my son's life have been taken from me, and I want to know why. Taken from you? Anger flared hot and bright in her chest. You gave up any right to him when you handed me that envelope full of cash and told me a baby would ruin everything you'd worked for. I was wrong. I made a terrible mistake. But that doesn't justify keeping his existence from me for 7 years. This is not a conversation I'm having in the middle of Vivian's birthday party. Sophia set her champagne glass on a passing waiter's tray with more force than necessary. If you want to talk, we can meet tomorrow. Somewhere private. Xavier's expression hardened into the one she remembered from boardrooms and business negotiations, determined, implacable. Fine. Tomorrow. My office at Blackwood Tower. 9 a.m. I'm here with Nathan. I can't just bring him. He should see where his father works. The casual claim of fatherhood, after 7 years of absence, ignited Sophia's protective instincts. Absolutely not. Nathan doesn't know about you, and I won't blindside him with something this significant in a strange environment. Something like hurt flashed across Xavier's features before his expression closed again. Then leave him with Vivian. I'm sure she'd be delighted to spend time with her nephew. Coffee shop. Neutral ground. And I'll make arrangements for Nathan myself. Fine. The Gramercy Cafe, 10 a.m. Xavier's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Don't be late, Sophia. We have 7 years to discuss, and I don't intend to waste another minute. As he walked away, his shoulders rigid with controlled fury, Sophia let out a shaky breath. The confrontation she'd feared for 7 years had finally happened, and it had been every bit as devastating as she'd imagined. Yet beneath the shock and anger in Xavier's eyes, she glimpsed something unexpected: pain. Real, human pain that didn't align with the cold, calculating man who dismissed their unborn child as an inconvenience all those years ago. What had happened to Xavier Blackwood in the 7 years since she'd known him? And more importantly, what would his sudden reappearance mean for the carefully constructed life she'd built with Nathan? Across the room, she watched as Xavier accepted a drink from a server, his gaze repeatedly drifting toward the children's area where Nathan stood laughing with the other kids. His expression as he observed his unknown son was complicated, anger still evident, but tempered now with something that looked almost like longing. For the first time since she'd left New York 7 years ago, Sophia wondered if she'd made the right choice in keeping Nathan's existence from his father. Not for Xavier's sake, but for her son's. Every child deserved to know where they came from, to understand the full story of their heritage. But was Xavier Blackwood capable of being the father Nathan deserved? Or would he see their son as just another asset to control, another piece in the perfect life he constructed for himself? Tomorrow would begin the process of answering those questions. For tonight, all Sophia could do was navigate the remainder of the party without another confrontation, keeping Nathan insulated from the emotional storm brewing between his parents. Parents. The word felt strange even in her thoughts. For 7 years, she had been Nathan's only parent, the sole source of love and guidance in his life. The idea of sharing that role with anyone, especially with Xavier Blackwood, filled her with a complicated mixture of fear, resentment, and an emotion she wasn't ready to examine too closely. As the evening progressed, Sophia maintained a careful distance from Xavier, though she could feel his eyes following her and Nathan as they moved through the celebration. When Nathan began yawning despite his protests that he wasn't tired, Sophia seized the opportunity to make their exit, finding Vivian to say their goodbyes. "Leaving so soon?" Vivian asked, her expression knowing. "I saw you talking with Xavier earlier. Everything okay?" "As okay as could be expected," Sophia replied quietly. "We're meeting tomorrow to discuss things." "One?" "Oh, Soph." Vivian squeezed her hand. "For what it's worth, I think this might be for the best. Nathan deserves to know his father, and Xavier deserves a chance to know his son." "Xavier deserves nothing," Sophia said, more sharply than she intended. "He made his choice 7 years ago." "People change, Sophia. Even billionaire CEOs." Vivian glanced across the tent to where Xavier stood in conversation with several men in tuxedos, his attention clearly elsewhere. "Just try to keep an open mind, okay? For Nathan's sake." In the car back to Manhattan, Nathan fell asleep against Sophia's shoulder, exhausted from the excitement of the day. Looking down at his peaceful face, the face that so clearly echoed Xavier's, Sophia felt the familiar fierce love that had sustained her through 7 years of single motherhood. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever role Xavier might eventually play in their lives, nothing could change the bond she shared with her son. Nathan was her heart, walking outside her body, the best decision she'd ever made. If Xavier wanted to be part of their lives, he would have to prove himself worthy of the remarkable child they'd created together. As the city lights came into view, Sophia made a silent promise to herself and to Nathan. She would approach tomorrow's meeting with as much openness as she could muster, but she would never again allow Xavier Blackwood to dictate the terms of their lives. Too much was at stake, not just her heart this time, but her son's as well. In her hotel room, after tucking Nathan into bed, Sophia stood by the window overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline. Somewhere out there, Xavier Blackwood was probably pacing his penthouse, processing the revelation that had turned his carefully ordered world upside down. Let him pace, she thought. Let him feel even a fraction of the uncertainty and fear she'd experienced 7 years ago, facing parenthood alone after he'd cast her aside. Yet, even as the thought formed, Sophia recognized the unfairness in it. She had chosen to keep Nathan a secret, had actively perpetuated that secret for 7 years. Whatever Xavier's initial reaction to her pregnancy had been, she had denied him the chance to reconsider, to grow, to know his son. The realization was uncomfortable, challenging the narrative she'd constructed to make sense of their separation. Had she kept Nathan from Xavier to protect her son, or to punish the man who had hurt her so deeply? The question followed her into uneasy dreams, where Xavier and Nathan built towering structures together, while she watched from a distance, unable to cross the growing space between them. Have you ever kept a secret that grew until it became too big to contain? Leave a comment below if you've ever had to face the consequences of a choice you made years ago. How do you think Xavier will react when he learns the full story? Like and subscribe to find out what happens when these two face each other alone for the first time in 7 years. The son he never knew. Part 2 of 2. Morning arrived with unforgiving brightness, streaming through the hotel curtains Sophia had forgotten to close. She'd slept fitfully, her dreams filled with fragments of the past colliding with her present fears. The digital clock on the nightstand showed 7:30 a.m., 2.5 hours until she would face Xavier across a coffee shop table. "Mom?" Nathan's sleepy voice came from the second bed. "Are we going to the museum today?" Sophia turned to find her son rubbing his eyes, his dark hair sticking up in all directions. "Later, sweetheart. I have a meeting this morning, remember? Aunt Vivian's husband is arranging for you to visit his office. They have a virtual reality room where you can design buildings." This wasn't entirely a lie. When she called Vivian last night in desperate need of childcare, her friend had immediately suggested that Nathan spend the morning with her husband at his investment firm, which did indeed have an impressive technology suite that would keep any tech-loving 7-year-old entertained for hours. "Cool." Nathan sat up, instantly alert. "Will Mr. Blackwood be there too? He knows a lot about technology." "No." The innocent question made Sophia's stomach clench. "No, he has his own company. But maybe you can tell him about the VR room next time you see him." "Nah." "Next time?" Nathan's perceptive eyes narrowed slightly. "Are we going to see him again before we go home?" Sophia sat on the edge of his bed, choosing her words carefully. "Possibly. He and I have some business to discuss while we're in New York." 9. "Is it about your buildings? Is he going to put his technology in them?" "Something like that." The evasion tasted bitter on her tongue, but she couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. Not yet. Not until she knew what Xavier intended to do with the knowledge of his son's existence. By 9:30, Sophia had delivered Nathan to Vivian's husband's office, marveling at how easily her son adapted to new situations. He'd barely glanced back as an enthusiastic assistant led him toward the promised VR room, too excited by the prospect of new technology to worry about his mother's absence. The Gramercy Cafe was exactly the kind of place Xavier would never choose for a meeting, casual, filled with students and freelancers, nursing laptop batteries and coffee cups, the antithesis of the rarefied corporate environments he preferred. Sophia had selected it deliberately, wanting ground that felt more like her territory than his. She arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a table near the back with a clear view of the entrance. Ordering a latte, she doubted she'd be able to drink. Sophia used the time to gather her composure, to mentally prepare for all possible versions of the conversation ahead. At precisely 10 a.m., the cafe door opened, and Xavier Blackwood stepped inside. Even in casual weekend attire, dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than most people's entire wardrobes, he commanded attention. Several patrons glanced up from their devices, recognition flickering across their faces. It wasn't every day that one of the world's most powerful tech moguls walked into a neighborhood coffee shop. Xavier spotted her immediately, his expression unreadable as he made his way through the crowded space. He'd mastered his emotions since last night, the shock and anger now concealed behind the polished facade she remembered all too well. Sophia. He didn't offer a handshake or any other greeting as he took the seat across from her. Thank you for being punctual. Professional courtesy. She met his gaze steadily. Would you like some coffee? I don't need refreshments. I need answers. Despite the controlled tone, intensity radiated from him. Starting with why you lied about terminating your pregnancy and disappeared with my child. Sophia had anticipated beginning with this question, had prepared her response carefully. Still, hearing him phrase it so bluntly made her defensive instincts flare. I told you last night. You made it abundantly clear you didn't want a child. You called our baby a complication and handed me cash for an abortion like you were settling a dinner bill. And that justified lying to me for 7 years? Xavier leaned forward, his voice low but forceful. Whatever my initial reaction, I had a right to know I had a son. Did you? Sophia matched his intensity. The man who told me a child is not part of my plans, not now, possibly not ever. The man who blocked my number and returned my letters unopened when I tried to contact him? After you told me you'd taken care of it. Yes, because your response made it perfectly clear what you wanted me to do. What would you have done if I'd said I was keeping the baby, Xavier? Offered financial support while making it clear you wanted nothing to do with us? Dragged me through custody battles to control the situation? Or simply washed your hands of both of us entirely? Xavier was silent for a long moment, his jaw working as he processed her words. When he spoke again, his voice had lost some of its edge. You don't know what I would have done because you never gave me the chance to decide. You had already decided. You made your position crystal clear that night in my apartment. People are allowed to change their minds, Sophia, especially about life-altering decisions made in moments of panic. Were you panicking? Sophia raised an eyebrow. Because you seemed remarkably calm and decisive while arranging my abortion appointment. Xavier's gaze dropped to his hands, which were clasped tightly on the table. I was terrified. The admission, so unexpected and vulnerable, momentarily silenced her. The company was weeks away from going public. The board was watching my every move. My father had just handed me control after years of telling me I wasn't ready. He looked up, his eyes reflecting a pain she hadn't expected to see. So, when you told me you were pregnant, all I could think was that I was about to lose everything I'd spent my life working toward. I reacted badly, unforgivably. Yes, you did. But that doesn't mean I couldn't have come around, given time to process. Xavier's voice grew quieter. I've had 7 years to think about what I'd do differently. 7 years of building a company, achieving everything I thought I wanted, and realizing none of it matters the way I thought it would. Sophia studied him, looking for signs of manipulation, the calculated charm he'd once used so effectively in business negotiations. But the man across from her seemed different from the Xavier she'd known, less certain, more human. I tried to contact you, she said finally, twice. After I moved to Seattle. The first time, your number had been disconnected. The second time, I sent a letter that came back marked, "Return to sender." Xavier frowned. I never changed my number, and I certainly never returned any letters from you. Well, someone did. My assistant at the time. Understanding dawned on his face. Rebecca Winters. She was protective of my schedule and personal life, especially after the IPO. Protective enough to block communication from your ex-girlfriend without telling you? It wouldn't be the first time. Xavier's expression hardened. She was fired 3 years ago for similar overreaching. Sophia absorbed this information, wondering how much it changed things. Even if Xavier hadn't personally blocked her attempts to contact him, he had created an environment where it was possible, surrounding himself with people who insulated him from anything they deemed inconvenient. You could have tried harder, Xavier continued, an edge returning to his voice. If you really wanted me to know about my son, you could have found a way. You're hardly unintelligent or incapable. You're right. Sophia's admission seemed to surprise him. I could have tried harder. But after those initial attempts failed, I started to think maybe it was for the best. Every article I read about you, every photo of you with another model or actress, reinforced my belief that you hadn't changed, that Nathan was better off without a father who viewed him as an inconvenience. That's not fair. You made assumptions about me based on tabloid photos and business magazines. The public persona of Xavier Blackwood isn't who I really am. Isn't it? Because the Xavier Blackwood who sat in my apartment 7 years ago, handing me cash for an abortion, seemed very much like the ruthless businessman profiled in those magazines. Xavier's hand tightened around the coffee cup. Sophia hadn't seen him order. People evolve, Sophia. Life teaches hard lessons. What lessons has life taught you, Xavier? The question hung between them, more sincere than she'd intended. For a moment, vulnerability flickered across his features before he composed himself. That control is an illusion. That all the money and power in the world can't protect you from loss. He met her gaze directly. That the things I thought mattered don't, and the things I dismissed as complications might have been what really mattered all along. Something shifted in Sophia's chest, not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the first crack in the wall of resentment she built around her heart. Pretty words, but they're just words. Then let me show you through actions. Xavier leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. I want to know my son, Sophia. I want to be part of his life. It's not that simple. Nathan doesn't even know you exist, not as his father, anyway. He thinks his father was someone who wasn't ready for a family. Well, he wasn't wrong. Xavier's attempt at humor fell flat. But I'm ready now. More than ready. Sophia took a deep breath, centering herself. What exactly are you proposing? A beginning. Introduce me as a friend first, someone from your past. Let me spend time with him while you're in New York. Get to know him gradually. And then what? We return to Seattle, and you disappear from his life again? No. The word was absolute. I have offices in Seattle. I can split my time between coasts, whatever it takes. Sophia stared at him, taken aback by his apparent willingness to rearrange his life. You'd relocate for a child you just met yesterday? For my son? Yes. Xavier's expression softened. He's extraordinary, Sophia. Smart, curious, perceptive, everything I could have hoped for in a child. You've done an amazing job raising him. The unexpected praise caught her off guard. Thank you. I mean it. I look at him and see all the best parts of both of us. His voice grew quieter. And I want the chance to be the father he deserves. And if I say no? If I tell you to stay away from us? Xavier's expression hardened slightly. I have rights, Sophia. Legal rights I could pursue. Is that a threat? It's a reality I'd prefer to avoid. He softened again, reaching across the table as if to touch her hand before thinking better of it. I don't want conflict between us. I want us to find a way forward that puts Nathan's needs first. Sophia considered her options. She could refuse, return to Seattle, and prepare for the legal battle that would inevitably follow. Xavier had unlimited resources and would likely win at least partial custody, creating a fractured situation that would confuse and potentially harm Nathan. Or she could work with him, control the narrative, and ensure that her son's introduction to his father happened in the gentlest way possible. 1 week, she said finally. We're here for 1 week. During that time, you can spend time with us, with both of us, as my friend. If that goes well, we can discuss next steps before we return to Seattle. Relief washed over Xavier's face. Thank you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Nathan. I understand. Xavier hesitated. When will you tell him who I really am? Not immediately. He needs time to get to know you first, to form his own impressions without the weight of biological expectations. Xavier nodded, though she could see it wasn't the answer he wanted. And what about us, Sophia? There is no us, Xavier. There's you, there's me, and there's our son, that's all. Is it? His gaze was too perceptive, seeing more than she wanted him to. Because I still feel something between us. Something that didn't end just because we went our separate ways. What you're feeling is the aftershock of discovering you have a child. Don't confuse it with something more. Xavier looked like he wanted to argue but instead nodded slowly. Fair enough. For now, Nathan is the priority. Everything else is secondary. As they finalized plans for the afternoon, a visit to the Natural History Museum where Nathan had been eager to go, Sophia found herself studying Xavier with new eyes. The man across from her wasn't the callous CEO who had dismissed their unborn child as an inconvenience. Whether through genuine growth or the shock of discovering his son, something had changed in Xavier Blackwood. The question was whether that change was deep enough, permanent enough, to make him the father Nathan deserved. I should go, Sophia said, gathering her purse. I need to pick up Nathan from Vivian's husband's office. I'll meet you at the museum at 1. Xavier stood as she did, his height still imposing even in the casual setting. And Sophia? Thank you for giving me this chance. I won't waste it. As she walked away, Sophia felt his eyes following her, the weight of his gaze as tangible as a touch. 7 years ago, she had been certain she knew exactly who Xavier Blackwood was. Now, she wasn't so sure, and that uncertainty was more dangerous than any anger or resentment could ever be. Outside the cafe, spring sunshine warmed her face as she hailed a taxi. Whatever happened next, Sophia knew one thing with absolute certainty. Life as she and Nathan had known it was about to change forever. The American Museum of Natural History bustled with weekend visitors, families, and tourists navigating the vast halls filled with dinosaur skeletons and dioramas. Nathan, bursting with excitement after his morning at the VR suite, pulled Sophia toward the main dinosaur hall, barely containing himself as they waited for Xavier to arrive. And then I designed a skyscraper with a garden on every floor. And Mr. Reynolds said it was actually a really good idea because it would help with oxygen levels in the building. Nathan's words tumbled out in a rush of enthusiasm. Can I tell Mr. Blackwood about it? He might want to put technology in the gardens to monitor plant growth. Sophia smiled, smoothing his perpetually tousled hair. I'm sure he'd be interested in hearing your ideas. Is that him? Nathan pointed toward the entrance, where Xavier had just appeared, scanning the crowd. Sophia's breath caught involuntarily. Even in casual clothes, dark jeans, a simple button-down shirt, and a leather jacket, Xavier exuded an authority that made other visitors instinctively move aside for him. When his eyes found them, a genuine smile transformed his usually serious face. Yes, that's him. Sophia raised her hand in greeting, watching as Xavier made his way toward them. Sorry I'm late, he said as he reached them, though Sophia noted he was precisely on time. Traffic was heavier than I expected. Mr. Blackwood. Nathan's excitement was palpable. I designed a building with gardens today. With VR. Xavier crouched down to Nathan's level, a gesture that surprised Sophia. The Xavier she remembered had always maintained his physical advantage, using his height to subtly dominate conversations. Did you? That sounds impressive. What kind of gardens? As Nathan launched into a detailed explanation of his vertical garden concept, complete with enthusiastic hand gestures, Xavier listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that delighted the boy. You know, Xavier said, when Nathan paused for breath, Blackwood Technologies is actually working on environmental sensors for urban agriculture. Maybe you could give our design team some input. Night. Nathan's eyes widened. Really? Me? Absolutely. Innovation can come from anywhere. Some of our best ideas have come from people thinking differently than everyone else. Sophia watched their interaction with a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite name. There was something both painful and beautiful in seeing them together, the identical way they tilted their heads when considering an idea, the similar gestures as they spoke, the shared intensity when discussing something that captured their interest. Shall we see the dinosaurs? She suggested when there was a natural pause in their conversation. I believe Triceratops was high on the priority list. Second only to T-Rex. Nathan confirmed seriously. Mr. Blackwood, do you like dinosaurs? I do. Xavier straightened, offering his hand to Nathan with formal politeness. In fact, when I was about your age, I wanted to be a paleontologist before I got interested in computers. Nathan took the offered hand without hesitation, and something twisted in Sophia's chest as she watched her son's small fingers disappear into his father's larger ones. What's your favorite dinosaur? Stegosaurus. Xavier replied without hesitation. I admired their practical approach to self-defense. Those are the ones with the plates on their backs, right? Nathan looked impressed. For regulating temperature and protection? Exactly. Xavier glanced at Sophia, a flash of wonder crossing his face at their son's knowledge. Throughout the afternoon, Sophia observed their interactions with careful attention, looking for signs that Xavier's interest might be feigned or temporary. But the longer they spent together, the more genuine his engagement seemed. He listened to Nathan's endless stream of questions and observations with remarkable patience, never patronizing or dismissive. When they reached the gem and mineral hall, Nathan pressed his face against a display case containing a massive amethyst geode. This is amazing. Look at all the crystals, Mom. It's beautiful, Sophia agreed, smiling at his enthusiasm. Did you know, Xavier said, standing close enough that Sophia could smell his familiar cologne. That amethyst gets its purple color from iron impurities and radiation. Really? Nathan looked at him with increased respect. How do you know that? I took geology as an elective in college. Found it fascinating how something considered an impurity could create such beauty. The observation struck Sophia as uncharacteristically philosophical for the pragmatic businessman she'd known. Another sign of the changes in him, or simply Xavier adapting his conversation to impress her son. As the afternoon progressed, they fell into a surprisingly comfortable rhythm, Nathan darting ahead to each new exhibit, Xavier and Sophia following at a more measured pace, occasionally exchanging observations about their son's enthusiastic response to particular displays. He has your mind, Xavier said quietly as they watched Nathan carefully examining a model of the solar system, that analytical way of breaking down complex information. But your curiosity, Sophia countered, and definitely your stubborn focus. Xavier smiled, the expression softening his features. Poor kid. Stubbornness from both sides. The casual joke, the shared moment of parental pride, felt dangerously normal, as if they were simply a family enjoying a day together, rather than virtual strangers, navigating the aftermath of 7 years of separation and secrets. Mom, I'm hungry, Nathan announced, returning to their side. Can we get food? The museum map says there's a cafe on the lower level. Good idea. Sophia checked her watch, surprised to find they'd been exploring for nearly 3 hours. I could use some coffee. I've got this, Xavier said, reaching for his wallet. My treat. That's not necessary, Sophia began, an instinctive resistance to accepting anything from him. Please. Something in his expression stopped her objection. Let me do this small thing. In the cafe, Nathan chattered happily about everything they'd seen, occasionally directing specific questions to Xavier about technology or business that clearly delighted him with their perceptiveness. You mentioned your company works with schools, Nathan said between bites of his sandwich. Do you make educational games too, or just the tablets? Both, actually. Xavier leaned forward, entering fully into the conversation. We have a division dedicated to educational technology. They create interactive learning experiences. Like simulations and stuff? We used one to explore the ocean floor last month. Exactly like that. Xavier smiled. Would you be interested in seeing how those are developed sometime? Nathan's eyes lit up. Could I? With your mother's permission, of course. Xavier glanced at Sophia, careful not to overstep. We can discuss it, Sophia said, unwilling to commit but equally reluctant to dampen Nathan's enthusiasm. My friend Leo says his dad took him to your company's demo day last year. He said there was a room where you could design roller coasters and then ride them in virtual reality. Xavier laughed. The Imagination Lab. It's meant to show students how physics and engineering principles work in a fun context. Could we go there? Nathan turned to Sophia, eyes pleading. Please, Mom, before we go back to Seattle? Sophia hesitated. Visiting Blackwood Technologies headquarters would mean entering Xavier's domain, surrendering the neutral ground she'd insisted upon. Yet denying Nathan this opportunity felt petty, especially given his genuine interest. We'll see, she said finally. We have several days left in New York. Let's not plan everything at once. Xavier caught her eye over Nathan's head, silently acknowledging her caution. The Imagination Lab isn't going anywhere, and there's still plenty to see in the museum today. The remainder of the afternoon passed in similar fashion, Nathan's enthusiasm driving their exploration, Xavier and Sophia orbiting around him like planets around a sundae. By the time they exited the museum, early evening was settling over the city, the spring air carrying a slight chill. That was the best day ever, Nathan declared, practically bouncing as they descended the museum steps. Can we come back tomorrow? We didn't even see the ocean hall. We have other plans tomorrow, Sophia reminded him. Aunt Vivian is taking us to see the Statue of Liberty, remember? Oh yeah. Nathan's disappointment vanished instantly. Mr. Blackwood, have you been to the Statue of Liberty? Xavier nodded. Several times. It's quite impressive up close. Hall. Would you like to join us? The invitation escaped Sophia's lips before she could reconsider, surprising both her and Xavier. I wouldn't want to intrude on your plans with Vivian, he said carefully. I want you to come. Nathan's enthusiastic endorsement settled the matter. You can tell me more about how they built the statue. I read that it came from France in pieces. Xavier looked to Sophia for confirmation. She nodded slightly, already wondering if she'd regret extending their time together. "If you're available, you're welcome to join us." "Then I'd be delighted." The genuine pleasure in his voice was unmistakable. "What time shall I meet you?" As they finalized plans for the following day, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb beside them. "My driver," Xavier explained. "Can I offer you a ride back to your hotel?" Sophia was about to decline when Nathan yawned widely, the day's excitement finally catching up with him. "That would be helpful, thank you." The interior of the town car was luxurious without being ostentatious: soft leather seats, privacy partition, subtle climate control that immediately enveloped them in warmth. Nathan's eyes widened as he took in the features, especially the built-in tablet screens on the back of each seat. "These are your company's tablets," he exclaimed, examining one closely. "But bigger." "Custom models," Xavier confirmed. "We're testing them for commercial vehicle integration." As Nathan explored the tablet's features, Xavier leaned closer to Sophia, his voice low. "Thank you for today. Seeing him, talking with him, it means more than I can express." Sophia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The genuine emotion in Xavier's voice made it difficult to maintain the defensive wall she built around her heart. "He's extraordinary, Sophia. You've done an amazing job raising him." "He makes it easy," she said quietly. "He's been the center of my world since the moment I knew he existed." Something like regret flashed across Xavier's features. "I wish I could have been there. For both of you." Before Sophia could respond, the car pulled up outside their hotel. "We're here, sweetheart," she said to Nathan, who reluctantly set down the tablet. "This car is awesome," he told Xavier seriously. "When I design buildings, I'm going to put your tablets in all the elevators." Xavier laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "I look forward to that partnership." As they exited the car, Xavier remained seated, clearly sensing that Sophia needed space to process the day's events. "I'll see you both tomorrow. 9 a.m. at Battery Park, correct?" "Yes." Sophia hesitated, then added, "Thank you for today." Nathan clearly enjoyed himself. The feeling was mutual. Xavier's gaze moved from her to their son, who was already describing the museum highlights to the doorman. "More than you know." As the car pulled away, Sophia watched it disappear into the Manhattan traffic, a complex mixture of emotions swirling within her. The day had gone better than she dared hope, with Xavier proving himself to be patient, engaging, and genuinely interested in Nathan. But that success carried its own complications. If Xavier continued to be the attentive, thoughtful presence he'd been today, how could she justify keeping him from Nathan's life? Yet allowing him in meant relinquishing the complete control she'd maintained for 7 years, opening their carefully constructed world to potential hurt and disappointment. "Mom, do you think Mr. Blackwood will let me visit his company before we go home?" Nathan asked as they rode the elevator to their floor. "He knows so much cool stuff about technology." "We'll see, sweetheart." Sophia smoothed his hair, heart aching at the enthusiasm in his voice. "He's a very busy man. But he made time for the museum today, and he's coming to the Statue of Liberty tomorrow." Nathan's logic was impeccable, so he must not be too busy. Being the boss has its advantages, Sophia conceded. He can rearrange his schedule when he wants to. In their hotel room, Nathan chatted excitedly about the day's adventures as he prepared for bed, recounting exhibits they'd seen and information Xavier had shared. His obvious admiration for his unknown father twisted something in Sophia's chest, both wonderful and painful to witness. Later, after Nathan had finally succumbed to sleep, Sophia stood by the window overlooking the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Thank you again for today. Nathan is everything I could have hoped for in a son. You've created something miraculous, Sophia. I only hope I can prove worthy of being part of his life. X." The simple sincerity of the message caught her off guard. This wasn't the calculating businessman who had handed her cash for an abortion 7 years ago. This was someone else, someone who seemed capable of genuine emotion, who looked at their son with wonder rather than seeing him as an inconvenience. Was it possible that Xavier had truly changed? Or was she seeing what she wanted to see? What would make the inevitable integration of Xavier into their lives easier to accept? The following days brought no easy answers, only more complications. Their excursion to the Statue of Liberty with Xavier proved as successful as the museum visit, with Nathan growing increasingly attached to his father's presence. Each evening, After Nathan was asleep, Sophia found herself analyzing every interaction, looking for signs that Xavier's interest might be temporary or calculated. But his commitment never wavered. When a business emergency required his attention during their planned visit to the Empire State Building, Xavier sent his personal assistant with profuse apologies and promises to make it up to them, promises he kept by arranging a private after-hours tour of the Blackwood Technologies Imagination Lab the following day, much to Nathan's delight. Watching her son explore the cutting-edge technology under Xavier's proud guidance, Sophia felt her resistance crumbling further. The connection between them was undeniable, not just the physical resemblance that grew more obvious with each passing day, but a deeper kinship of mind and temperament that couldn't be fabricated. "Mom, look, I designed a building that uses solar panels as windows." Nathan called from a large interactive display, where his fingers manipulated a three-dimensional structure. "Mr. Blackwood says it's actually possible with new transparent, photovoltaic cells." "That's amazing, sweetheart." Sophia moved closer, noting the pride in Xavier's expression as he watched their son. "He has remarkable spatial intelligence," Xavier said quietly, "and an intuitive understanding of how systems work together. He'd make an excellent engineer or architect. He wants to design buildings that help the planet." Sophia replied, "A blend of my work and yours, I suppose. The best of both worlds." Xavier's gaze moved from Nathan to her, something unspoken in his eyes. "He's made me reevaluate everything, Sophia. In just a few days, he's changed how I see the world." The raw honesty in his voice caught her off guard. Children have a way of doing that. Not just any child. "Nathan," Xavier hesitated. "When do you think we should tell him? About me, I mean." The question she'd been dreading. 5 days into their time in New York, with only 2 remaining before their scheduled return to Seattle, the issue could no longer be avoided. "Soon," she admitted. "He's already growing attached to you. It wouldn't be fair to either of you to keep the truth hidden much longer." Relief washed over Xavier's features. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This conversation could go many different ways. Nathan might be angry, confused, hurt. We need to be prepared for any reaction. We'll handle it together." Xavier's use of the word "we" sent an unexpected shiver through her. Whatever he needs. Later that evening, after they'd returned to their hotel, and Nathan was engrossed in a new engineering app Xavier had downloaded for him, Sophia made a decision. "Nathan, can you come sit with me for a minute? There's something important I need to talk to you about." Nathan looked up from his tablet, immediately alert to the seriousness in her tone. "Am I in trouble?" "Not at all." Sophia patted the sofa beside her. "It's about Mr. Blackwood." "Is he okay?" Concern immediately filled Nathan's eyes. "He's not sick or anything?" "He's fine." Sophia took a deep breath. "But there's something about him, about his connection to us, that I haven't told you." Nathan's perceptive gaze studied her face. "What is it?" "Mr. Blackwood isn't just someone I used to know in New York." Sophia took her son's hand, heart racing. "He's your father." For a moment, Nathan simply stared at her, processing this information with the careful deliberation she'd come to expect from him. "My father? The one who wasn't ready for a family?" "Yes. But he seems ready now." Nathan's straightforward observation caught her off guard. "People change," Sophia said carefully. "Sometimes it takes time for them to understand what's really important." "Is that why he's been spending so much time with us? Because he knows I'm his son?" "Yes, he found out the night of Aunt Vivian's party. That's why we met him at the museum the next day." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "Does he want to be my dad now?" "He does." Sophia squeezed his hand. "Very much so. But what matters most is what you want, Nathan. How you feel about all this." Another long pause as Nathan considered the question with characteristic thoroughness. "I've always wondered what having a dad would be like. And Mr. Blackwood is pretty cool. He knows lots of stuff and listens when I talk." "He does." Sophia smiled despite the emotion tightening her throat. "Can I ask him questions? About why he wasn't there before?" "Of course. You can ask him anything you want." "Will we stay in New York now? To be near him?" The practical question caught Sophia off guard. "No, sweetheart. Our home is in Seattle, but Mr. Blackwood has offices there too. He's planning to spend more time on the West Coast, so he can see you regularly." "So, he's really serious about being my dad?" "It seems that way, yes." Nathan nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. "Can I call him tomorrow?" To talk about it? Actually, he was hoping to have breakfast with us in the morning. To talk in person. That's good. Nathan leaned against her, suddenly looking younger than his 7 years. Mom, are you happy about this? About him being back? The question pierced straight through Sophia's carefully maintained composure. I'm happy for you, sweetheart. Every child deserves to know where they come from. But are you happy? Nathan persisted with his usual perceptiveness. It's complicated, Nathan. Your father and I have a lot of history. But seeing how good he is with you, how much he cares about you. Yes, that makes me happy. Nathan nodded, accepting this answer. Can I go back to my game now? Of course. Sophia kissed the top of his head, marveling at his resilience. I love you, you know. I know. Nathan smiled, already reaching for his tablet. Love you too, Mom. After tucking Nathan into bed, Sophia called Xavier to update him on their conversation. His relief was palpable even through the phone. He took it well? Xavier asked, his voice tentative. Better than I expected. He's processing it in his own way. Wants to talk to you tomorrow. I'll be there. Whatever time works for you both. 8:30? In the hotel restaurant? I'll be there at 8:15. Xavier paused. Thank you, Sophia, for telling him, for giving me this chance. I'm doing what's best for Nathan. Yet, even as she said the words, Sophia wondered if that was entirely true. Part of her, a part she wasn't ready to examine too closely, had made this decision for herself as well, unable to deny the connection that still existed between her and Xavier, complicated now by their shared responsibility for their son. The following morning, Sophia woke to find Nathan already dressed and sitting at the desk, writing something in the notebook he carried everywhere. You're up early, she observed, checking the time. 7:30, an hour before they were due to meet Xavier. I'm making a list, Nathan explained seriously, of questions for Dad. I mean, Mr. Blackwood. I don't know what to call him yet. You can call him whatever feels comfortable. Sophia sat beside him, heart aching at the careful list written in his precise handwriting. And you don't have to ask everything today. There will be plenty of time. Nathan nodded, adding another question to his list. I want to understand everything. About why he wasn't there before and why he wants to be here now. Those are good questions to ask. By 8:15, they were seated in the hotel restaurant. Nathan unusually quiet as he reviewed his list. Sophia had just ordered coffee when Xavier appeared, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. Good morning, he said, his eyes moving immediately to Nathan. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Nathan regarded him with serious consideration. Mom says you're my father. Xavier nodded, taking the seat across from them. Yes, I am. Why weren't you there when I was born? Or when I was growing up? The directness of the question seemed to catch Xavier off guard, though Sophia had warned him that Nathan never approached difficult topics indirectly. That's a fair question. Xavier took a deep breath. The simplest answer is that I didn't know you existed until a few days ago, at Aunt Vivian's party. But that's not the complete truth. Nathan frowned. What do you mean? I knew your mother was pregnant before you were born, but I handled it very badly. I was scared and selfish, and told her I wasn't ready to be a father. Why were you scared? Nathan's genuine curiosity held no judgment. Xavier glanced at Sophia before answering. Because being a father is the most important job in the world, and I didn't think I was good enough for it. I was focused on my company, on making money and being successful in business. I thought those things were more important than family. And now you don't? Now I know they aren't. Xavier leaned forward, his expression earnest. Meeting you has shown me what really matters, Nathan. You're the most amazing person I've ever met, and I've missed so much by not being part of your life. Nathan considered this, checking something off his list. Mom said you have offices in Seattle too, so you can visit even when we go home. And that's right. And if it's okay with you and your mother, I'd like to spend as much time with you as possible, to make up for the years I missed. Well, I'd like that. Nathan's simple acceptance brought visible emotion to Xavier's face. I have more questions though. Right. Ask me anything. I promise to answer honestly. For the next hour, Nathan methodically worked through his list, asking questions that ranged from practical, will you come to my science fair next month? To philosophical, do you believe in aliens? To deeply personal, were you in love with Mom? Xavier answered each with remarkable patience and honesty, never evading or diminishing the importance of Nathan's inquiries. Sophia watched their interaction with a mixture of amazement and apprehension. The ease with which they communicated, the natural rhythm they found together, was both beautiful and terrifying. In just a few days, Xavier had become an essential part of Nathan's world, a world that had belonged exclusively to her for 7 years. "Can I call you Dad?" Nathan asked finally, setting down his pencil. "Or is that too weird since we just met?" Xavier's composure cracked, genuine emotion flooding his features. "I would be honored if you called me Dad, but only when you're ready. There's no rush." "I think I'm ready." Nathan smiled, revealing the gap where he'd recently lost a tooth. "I've always wondered what it would be like to say my dad." As Nathan excused himself to use the restroom, Xavier turned to Sophia, his eyes suspiciously bright. "He's incredible. So thoughtful, so mature for his age." "He's always been an old soul." Sophia sipped her coffee, using the moment to compose herself. "This is going remarkably well, but don't think it will always be this easy. There will be challenges, adjustments, difficult moments." "I know." Xavier reached across the table, briefly touching her hand. "But we'll figure it out together. For Nathan's sake." The casual touch, the assumption of partnership, sent an unexpected warmth through Sophia. Yes, for Nathan. The remainder of their time in New York passed in a whirlwind of activity, sightseeing, meals together, and long conversations where the three of them began the complex process of becoming a family. Xavier's presence, initially strange, gradually became familiar, then almost essential to their daily rhythm. By the night before their scheduled return to Seattle, Sophia found herself facing a reality she hadn't anticipated. She didn't want to leave. Not because of New York itself, but because departure meant disrupting the delicate balance they'd established, returning to a life where Xavier's role was undefined. "Mom?" Nathan's voice interrupted her thoughts as she packed their suitcases. "Is Dad coming to the airport with us tomorrow?" "Yes, he'll meet us at the hotel in the morning." Sophia folded one of his t-shirts, avoiding his perceptive gaze. "He wants to see us off." "Will he visit next weekend?" "He promised to help me with my robot project." "I'm sure he will, sweetheart. He's making arrangements to spend more time in Seattle." Nathan nodded, satisfied with this answer. "I'm glad we came to New York. Even though it was scary at first, finding out about Dad." "No." "Scary?" Sophia paused in her packing. "What do you mean?" "I was worried he might not like me." Nathan's admission was matter of fact. "Or that he might take me away from you. That happens sometimes in books and movies." Sophia sat beside him on the bed, pulling him into a hug. "No one could ever take you away from me, Nathan. And as for your father not liking you, that was never a possibility. How could anyone not adore you? He likes you too, you know." Nathan's observation caught her off guard. "I can tell by the way he looks at you. Like how Mr. Peterson looks at Mrs. Peterson at school. They've been married for 1,000,000 years." "Has he been married a long time?" "Wow." Sophia deliberately misinterpreted, ignoring the implication about Xavier's feelings. "Mom." Nathan rolled his eyes. "You know what I mean. Dad looks at you like he thinks you're really special." "We share a very special connection through you," Sophia said carefully. "That's probably what you're seeing." Nathan shrugged, unconvinced. "If you say so." Later that evening, after Nathan was asleep, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Xavier. "Can we talk? Just the two of us. Before you leave tomorrow. There are things we need to discuss about arrangements going forward." "Practical matters," Sophia told herself. Nothing more. Yet her heart quickened as she replied, agreeing to meet him in the hotel lounge after she was certain Nathan was deeply asleep. The lounge was nearly empty when she arrived, just a few business travelers working on laptops in the dimly lit space. Xavier sat in a corner booth, a glass of scotch untouched before him. He stood when he saw her, that unconscious courtesy she'd once found charming. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as she slid into the booth across from him. "I know it's late. We have a lot to figure out." Sophia declined the waiter's offer of a drink. "Nathan's already asking about your visit to Seattle next weekend." "One." Xavier smiled, the expression softening his features. "I've booked a flight for Friday afternoon. I thought perhaps I could pick him up from school, if that's all right with you." "1. That would work." Sophia hesitated. "But we should establish some boundaries, Xavier. Clear expectations about your involvement." "Of course." He leaned forward, fully engaged. "What did you have in mind?" "Regular visits, scheduled in advance. Consistent communication. No lavish gifts or attempts to buy his affection. And most importantly, no making promises you can't keep. If you tell him you'll be there for something, you need to be there. Agreed, on all counts. Xavier nodded seriously. I've already rearranged my schedule to ensure I can spend at least 2 weekends a month in Seattle. More, if possible. And legally? What are you expecting in terms of formal custody arrangements? Xavier's expression grew cautious. Eventually, I'd like legal recognition as his father, but I'm not rushing that process. I understand it needs to happen on your terms, when you're comfortable. The consideration in his approach, so different from the controlling businessman she'd known 7 years ago, caught Sophia off guard. Thank you. I meant what I said before, Sophia. I don't want conflict between us. What happened in the past, I can't change it. But I can try to be the father Nathan deserves now, and the co-parent you deserve. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. For a moment, Sophia allowed herself to remember why she'd fallen for him all those years ago. The intensity, the focus, the capacity for complete commitment, once he decided on a course of action. There's something else, Xavier continued, his voice softening. Something I've wanted to say since the moment I saw you at Vivian's party. Xavier. Please, let me finish. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. I've thought about you every day for 7 years, Sophia. Not just because of what might have been with our child, but because you were the only woman who ever saw me as more than my company or my bank account. The only one who challenged me to be better than I was. That was a long time ago, Sophia said, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. We're different people now. Are we? Because these past few days have felt like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. Xavier's gaze held hers, unwavering. I'm not asking for anything, Sophia. I know I have no right to. But I want you to know that my feelings for you never truly died. They were just buried under regret and work and the foolish belief that success could fill the void you left. Sophia felt her carefully constructed defenses beginning to crumble. Xavier, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. I'm not suggesting we do. I'm suggesting we start something new. Something based on who we are now, not who we were then. He smiled slightly. Something built around the amazing son we created together. Co-parenting doesn't have to mean falling in love again? You're right, it doesn't. Xavier finally bridged the gap between them, his hand covering hers. But what if we already are? The question hung between them, dangerous in its simplicity. Sophia stared at their joined hands, feeling the familiar warmth of his touch, the comfort and discomfort it brought simultaneously. I need time, she said finally. Time to sort through everything that's happened, everything I'm feeling. Nathan has to be our priority right now. Always. Xavier squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. Take all the time you need, Sophia. I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. As she returned to her hotel room, checking on Nathan's peaceful sleeping form before slipping into her own bed, Sophia found herself at a crossroads she'd never anticipated. 1 week ago, she'd been certain of her life's direction, confident in the boundaries she'd established to protect herself and her son. Now, everything was in flux. Nathan's relationship with his father, her own unresolved feelings for Xavier, the future that stretched before them with its infinite possibilities. The next morning, their departure from New York felt like the closing of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. Xavier met them in the hotel lobby, his driver waiting to take them to the airport. Nathan hugged him with unrestrained affection, extracted multiple promises about their upcoming weekend in Seattle, and finally allowed himself to be guided into the waiting car. Thank you, Xavier said quietly to Sophia as they stood on the sidewalk. For everything. For raising our son to be the extraordinary person he is. For giving me a second chance I probably don't deserve. He's the one giving you the chance, Sophia corrected gently. I'm just not standing in the way. And us? The question was tentative, unlike the confident Xavier she'd known. Sophia looked at him, really looked at the man he'd become over 7 years of separation. The arrogance had been tempered by experience, the cold calculation replaced by genuine emotion. Whether these changes were permanent or merely a reaction to discovering his son, only time would tell. Let's focus on Nathan for now, she said finally. On building a stable foundation for him. The rest, we'll see. Xavier nodded, accepting this non-answer with surprising grace. I'll see you Friday, in Seattle. We'll be waiting. As their car pulled away from the curb, Nathan waved enthusiastically through the window. Xavier stood watching until they disappeared around a corner, his tall figure growing smaller in the distance. "Mom?" Nathan turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I'm glad Dad's going to be part of our lives now." "Me too, sweetheart." And to her surprise, Sophia realized she meant it. Whatever complications Xavier's presence might bring, the joy in her son's eyes made them worth navigating. "Me too. Me too." 2 months later, their new normal had begun to take shape. Xavier had been true to his word, spending every other weekend in Seattle, never missing a promised visit or call with Nathan. He purchased a penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle, close enough to their home for convenience, but maintaining the separate spaces Sophia had insisted upon. Nathan had flourished under the dual influence of his parents, his natural intelligence and curiosity nurtured by both Sophia's practical guidance and Xavier's technological expertise. The science fair project they'd worked on together, a sustainable urban garden model with integrated monitoring systems, had won first place. Nathan's proud smile in the photos Xavier had framed for both their homes, a testament to their successful co-parenting. Their relationship remained carefully platonic, focused entirely on Nathan's well-being. Yet Sophia couldn't deny the gradual shift in her feelings toward Xavier, the grudging respect that had evolved into genuine admiration, the wariness that had softened into something dangerously close to trust. "He's changed," Vivian insisted during their weekly phone calls. "The Xavier who handed you that envelope 7 years ago wouldn't recognize the man who spends his weekends building robots with his son instead of closing business deals." "People don't change that fundamentally," Sophia argued, though with less conviction than before. "Maybe not, but they can grow, evolve." Vivian's voice softened. "And so can you, Soph. It's okay to forgive him, to forgive yourself too." The words lingered in Sophia's mind as she prepared dinner one Friday evening, waiting for Xavier to arrive with Nathan after their now traditional father-son afternoon. The sound of laughter preceded them, Nathan's excited voice echoing through the hallway before the door opened. "Mom, Dad took me to his company's research lab. They're working on solar-powered drones for delivering medical supplies to remote areas." Nathan burst into the kitchen, his eyes alight with excitement. "And guess what? The project leader said my ideas about battery efficiency were really smart." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Sophia smiled, glancing past him to where Xavier stood in the doorway, watching their son with undisguised pride. "Sounds like you had an amazing afternoon." "The best." Nathan hugged her quickly before racing toward his room. "I'm going to draw the designs we talked about before dinner." As his footsteps receded down the hall, Sophia turned to Xavier. "You've created a monster, you know? He's talking about applying for an internship at your company. He's 7. Xavier laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "I told him he has to wait until he's at least 12. We have child labor laws to consider." "Very responsible of you." Sophia returned to chopping vegetables, hyper-aware of Xavier's presence as he moved into the kitchen. "Did he behave himself at the lab?" "Perfectly." He impressed everyone with his questions. Xavier leaned against the counter, close enough that she could smell his cologne, different from the one he'd worn 7 years ago, less imposing, more subtle. One of my senior engineers asked if he'd been coached. Couldn't believe his understanding of energy systems was entirely self-taught. "He comes by it naturally." Sophia glanced up, meeting Xavier's gaze. From both sides. The acknowledgement of their shared contribution to Nathan's gifts brought a smile to Xavier's face. "High praise, coming from you." "I'm learning to give credit where it's due." A comfortable silence fell between them as Sophia continued preparing dinner and Xavier set the table, a domestic rhythm they'd fallen into during his weekend visits. Nathan's bedroom door opened, his voice calling down the hall. "Dad, can you help me with this sketch? I can't get the propeller angles right." "Be right there," Xavier called back, his eyes never leaving Sophia's face. "Will you be okay finishing up alone?" "Go. He needs you." As Xavier disappeared down the hallway, Sophia found herself smiling at the casual normality of the moment. 2 months ago, the idea of Xavier Blackwood in her kitchen, responding to their son's call for help with homework, would have seemed impossible. Now, it felt almost right. Later, after Nathan was in bed and Xavier was preparing to leave, Sophia found herself reluctant to end the evening. "Coffee before you go?" she offered, surprising both of them. "I'd like that." Xavier followed her back to the kitchen, watching as she prepared 2 cups. "Thank you for dinner." for including me in these everyday moments with Nathan. You're his father. He wants you here." Sophia handed him a steaming mug. "And you've proven yourself reliable. That matters to me." "Just to be clear," Xavier said carefully, "am I here solely as Nathan's father, or is there room for something more between us?" The directness of the question caught Sophia off guard, though perhaps it shouldn't have. Xavier had always preferred addressing issues head-on. "I don't know," she admitted, the honesty easier than she'd expected. "I've spent 7 years protecting myself from being hurt again. It's not easy to lower those defenses." "I understand." Xavier set down his coffee, moving closer but still maintaining a respectful distance. "But I want you to know that my feelings for you haven't changed, Sophia. If anything, seeing you as a mother, watching your strength and grace with Nathan, has only deepened them." "Xavier, I'm not asking for an answer tonight, or a commitment of any kind." His eyes held hers, sincere in a way the younger Xavier had never managed. "I'm simply telling you that if you're ever ready to explore what might still exist between us, I'll be here, however long it takes." The promise hung between them, weighted with possibility. In another life, Sophia might have dismissed it as empty words from a man who had already proven himself untrustworthy. But the Xavier before her now had spent 2 months demonstrating his commitment through consistent actions rather than grand declarations. "Thank you for your patience," she said finally. "With all of this. With me. Some things are worth waiting for." Xavier smiled, finishing his coffee and gathering his coat. "I'll pick Nathan up tomorrow at 9 for the Science Center, if that still works for you." "It does." Sophia walked him to the door, hyper-aware of his presence beside her. He's been looking forward to it all week. At the threshold, Xavier paused, his expression softening. "Good night, Sophia." "Good night." As the door closed behind him, Sophia leaned against it, her thoughts in turmoil. The careful boundaries she'd established were blurring, the distinctions between co-parenting and something more becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Was she ready to risk her heart again with the man who had once broken it so thoroughly? Could the new Xavier, the father who built robots with his son and rearranged billion-dollar business deals to attend second-grade science fairs, truly be trusted with something as fragile as love? The answers didn't come that night, or in the weeks that followed. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, something shifted between them. Conversations extended beyond Nathan's needs. Shared meals became more frequent. The space they maintained between themselves narrowed, physically and emotionally. 6 months after their reunion at Vivian's birthday party, Xavier invited them both to dinner at his Seattle apartment, a celebration of Nathan's successful first semester with both parents actively involved in his life. As Nathan explored the expansive penthouse, marveling at the technology integrated into every aspect of the living space, Xavier guided Sophia to the balcony overlooking the city lights. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. "Not what you're thinking," he added quickly, seeing her alarmed expression. "Just something I should have given you a long time ago." Sophia opened the box cautiously to find a delicate silver key resting on velvet. "What is this?" "Ooh. The key to a trust fund I established for Nathan the day after I learned he was my son." Xavier's expression was solemn. "It's in his name, controlled by both of us equally until he's 25. Enough to ensure he'll never have to worry about education costs or starting his own ventures someday." "Xavier, I can't." "You can, and you should." His voice was gentle but firm. "This isn't about control or buying affection. It's about providing for our son's future. Something I should have been doing for the past 7 years." Sophia studied the key, symbol of a security she'd fought so hard to provide on her own. "This is very generous. It's the bare minimum of what he deserves." Xavier moved closer, his hand finding hers in the dim light. "What you both deserve." The touch was electric, sending warmth spreading through her despite the cool evening air. Sophia looked up to find Xavier watching her, his expression revealing everything he felt: hope, desire, and something deeper she was finally ready to acknowledge. "I forgive you," she said quietly, the words she'd held back for months finally breaking free. "For what happened 7 years ago. For the envelope, the harsh words, all of it." Xavier's breath caught, his fingers tightening around hers. "Sophia, I need to say this." She stepped closer, emboldened by the vulnerability in his eyes. "You hurt me deeply, made me feel worthless, disposable. For years, I held on to that hurt, used it as a shield against ever being that vulnerable again. I will regret that for the rest of my life, Xavier said, his voice rough with emotion. I know. Sophia smiled, slightly. That's why I can forgive you. Because the man you are now would never do what that younger version of you did. You've proven that every day for the past 6 months. Does this mean? It means I'm ready to try again. Not from where we left off, but from where we are now. As the people we've become. Sophia moved closer still, her free hand rising to touch his face. Parents to an extraordinary child, and maybe something more. The kiss, when it came, felt both familiar and entirely new, a recognition of their shared past and a promise of a future neither had imagined possible. When they separated, Xavier's expression held a wonder she'd never seen before. I love you, he said simply. I think I always have, even when I was too foolish to recognize what that meant. Before Sophia could respond, Nathan's voice called from inside the apartment. Mom? Dad? Where are you guys? I found the game room. They exchanged a smile, the intimate moment giving way to the joyful reality of their shared responsibility. We're coming, Sophia called back, reluctantly stepping away from Xavier's embrace. As they moved toward the door, Xavier caught her hand once more. We should tell him. About us. Let's give it time, Sophia suggested. Make sure this is real before we complicate his world further. It's real for me. Xavier's certainty was unwavering, more real than anything I've ever felt. Sophia smiled, the last of her reservations finally falling away. For me too. Inside, Nathan awaited them, his enthusiasm for the virtual reality gaming system momentarily forgotten as he observed his parents' clasped hands and matching smiles. His perceptive eyes narrowed, a smile spreading across his face that mirrored Xavier's exactly. Finally, he said with the dramatic exasperation only a 7-year-old could master. I was wondering how long it would take you guys to figure it out. Xavier's startled laugh echoed through the apartment. Figure what out? Exactly? That we're supposed to be a real family. Nathan shrugged, as if stating the obvious. Not just on weekends and special occasions. Sophia exchanged a glance with Xavier, seeing her own amazement reflected in his eyes. And how would you feel about that? She asked carefully. About us being a more traditional family? I'd like it. Nathan's direct answer held no hesitation. As long as I still get my own room, and you guys don't get all mushy in public. That would be embarrassing. Xavier knelt to Nathan's level, his expression serious despite the humor dancing in his eyes. I think those are reasonable conditions. Anything else we should know about your expectations for this family arrangement? Nathan considered the question with his usual thoroughness. Just one thing. If you guys have another baby, I want a brother. Sisters are annoying. Leo's sister touches all his stuff. As Xavier struggled to maintain his composure, Sophia stepped in, smoothing Nathan's perpetually unruly hair. Let's take this one step at a time, sweetheart. For now, how about we focus on beating Dad at whatever virtual reality game he's so proud of? Deal. Nathan grabbed both their hands, pulling them toward the game room with the boundless energy of childhood. I bet we can team up and crush him, Mom. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Xavier warned, winking at Sophia over their son's head. I've been practicing. So have we, Sophia countered, the warmth in her chest expanding to encompass this moment, this family they were creating together. And we make a pretty good team. And, as Nathan darted ahead, Xavier squeezed her hand, his eyes conveying everything words couldn't express, gratitude for second chances, wonder at the family they'd created, and the promise of a future where past mistakes strengthened rather than destroyed what they built together. Sometimes, Sophia reflected as she watched her son and his father configure the gaming system with identical expressions of concentration. The most beautiful journeys begin with wrong turns. And sometimes, the hardest decisions lead us exactly where we're meant to be. When life throws you unexpected detours, how do you find your way back to the path you were meant to follow? If you believe in second chances and the power of forgiveness to heal even the deepest wounds, leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about life's unexpected twists and the courage it takes to embrace them. And remember, family isn't always defined by perfect choices or unblemished histories. Sometimes, it's built on the foundation of our greatest mistakes, transformed through love, patience, and the willingness to believe that people really can change when given the chance to become their best selves.